Hello, welcome to the memoQ Fest 2024 conference. My name is Doug Strock, and I'm with the Unicorn Advanced Management Platform. The original soundtrack was not captured for this session due to technical issues, so this presentation will cover the areas discussed and provide a bit more information. One of the ways I have been asked to improve the Unicorn platform is to add the ability to support interpreting and other service offerings, such as consulting, training, proctoring, and language skill assessment. The platform is quite flexible and currently undergoing development to provide support for all the different service offerings. There are some unique challenges to supporting both translation and interpretation, as listed in the first slide here. You'll note that everything about the two different services is different. So the requirements are different. They may have the same or different vendors. They may have the same or different clients. And the qualifications and certifications for each service type are different. Interpreting tends to be far more complicated. And one of the things I did not fully appreciate was the, I guess you'd call it, finicky nature of the interpreting client base, the linguists, and the consumers. Whereas some clients prefer certain interpreters, other clients or consumers definitely do not want to work with certain linguists. Some linguists work well with other linguists and can be teamed with them. Others do not want to be teamed with different individuals, don't want to work for certain clients. And the list of requirements just seems endless as you go further into the weeds with the different modes of interpreting: simultaneous, consecutive, whisper, whether equipment is needed for headsets, microphones, sound booths, and all these different variations. And that's not even talking about the sign language aspect. So there are benefits to supporting both services on one platform. And in the next slide, you'll see some of those benefits. By and large, the largest ones are the ability to have a single source of data and reduction of data maintenance. You're not entering the same data into two different platforms. You can reduce your costs. You're not supporting two different platforms. And in terms of cross-training, if everyone's using one platform, even if their primary role is a scheduler for interpreting or as a project manager for translation projects, if one or the other is sick, they can easily pick up and be on the same platform and familiar with the platform and not have two very different pieces of software with very different interfaces. Everything holds together. So the Unicorn platform has many unique features that make supporting both translation and interpreting services easier. There's an integrated knowledge base. There's an integrated asset inventory tool, which then can tie in with the interpreting requests in terms of managing equipment. You can see how much of a certain piece of equipment is on hand, how much is already in use or on an assignment to a different project. And you can also track ROI. You can look at equipment types and get feedback on which pieces of equipment perform better than others or more cost effective. There's a lot more you can do with that data. Then you also have one single source of data to manage ISO compliance. And you're not trying to track all that outside the system. We recently went through an audit, and the auditor cut the audit short by 2 hours because everything was available within the system to answer all the questions for the auditor. Last audit we had, they had no major or minor nonconformities. And so everything was there and all the answers to the questions came from the system. So there are, again, unique features. If you have a client, for example, that requires a background check, that background check then carries through across all the vendors in the platform. It carries through across all the staff using the platform. And in the one case specifically that we had, the client stated that if someone was unable to pass the background check, they could not even see that a job existed. So setting those restrictions ahead of time means that even upon the request, that project is not visible to people who have not passed the background check. And this is important for security. It's not just denying access to a function. They don't see that the job is there. So finally, there is the flexibility and customization. And this goes to how you want to design your workflows. A lot of people want fully automated workflows. Again, our experience has been that if you fully automate, you can take a small problem and make it a large problem if the source files contain errors. And now you put that out automatically to 30 or 40 translators, and now you have to deal with 30 or 40 corrections. Whereas a simple human check of the file, the source file, or whatever the issue is ahead of time before putting in automation alleviates the need for all the correction. Similarly, there's a question and answer tool that's unique, and that allows for the handling of questions from linguists during a project, and then notifying all the linguists on the project with one notification. So you can automate or put in breaks as needed to allow for the human to interact with the system in the way that best benefits the human ability to make decisions, identify areas before a problem occurs, and kind of get ahead of issues before everything is just fully automated. Now, you certainly could choose to fully automate, but sometimes you want a person there, and maybe you even want a checklist that they go through. For example, before sending a quote, you want to have someone else review the quote following a checklist to make sure that everything is correct in the quote before you send it out and have to say, oh, sorry, disregard the first quote. We have to correct it and send you another one. Oh, sorry, that one contained an error too. We have to send a third quote. And the client at the end gets confused. You don't look very professional. And I'm sure it's happened to almost everyone who has sent a quote. You get in a hurry, you've overlooked some aspect of it, or they come back and say, oh, I want to change. And now you have to go back and revise. So there was a question during the session about handling larger clients that may have many divisions or sites under one corporate entity. And the Unicorn platform handles these client structures very well. And this is allowing for each client to have different data, documentation, purchase orders, agreements from either the higher corporate level, at the site level, down to the individual contact level. The reporting will aggregate everything up under the corporate structure while maintaining the site differences. If you have, for example, a purchase order from a site, you can enter that purchase order, put the dollar amount in. The system will automatically track the balance remaining on the purchase order as work is done against the purchase order. So that's the kind of mechanisms we have in place for handling larger clients. You can choose to have data flow down from the higher level down to the lower levels, or each site can be different. And so there's been questions around the size of the development team. And currently there are 2 developers. We are in discussions with others who want to contribute resources and knowledge to the effort in various ways. The discussions are currently early stage discussions, and I will be making announcements probably in the months ahead as these efforts come to fruition. The people who want to contribute are very knowledgeable in the different fields and workflows that we're getting into. And so it's just been very, very exciting for me to see that interest and the willingness of people to want to see this platform succeed and become something that really is quite unique within the language industry. Because right now there's very little out there, if anything, that tries to handle both translation and interpreting, but also handles other types of use scenarios. And one example of that is we have a chemical regulatory consultant in Canada who is exploring using the system. And that brings about its own challenges. So each thing we do is driving more flexibility. And so I think these are exciting times for the platform. We are just getting started. And so the ability to deal with all these different scenarios and do them well. It's not just a question of how we handle one specific thing. We want to do all of them well, and that's where most software fails. It does one thing well, but everything else it doesn't do well. And so we're looking to do everything well and make sure we have the right and the most efficient processes in place. The other aspect of the system revolved around, will we integrate with other platforms? Currently, we have a very deep integration with memoQ, and that has taken considerable time and effort. There's around 8,000 lines of custom code integrating with the memoQ API. And we will explore integrating with other platforms as we have the time and resource to do that, but the APIs may not support the same functionality, and that could be an issue. Similarly, we support Microsoft Outlook for the email platform and also for the Word and Excel, PowerPoint, some of the tools that we work with. So that is something where, can we look at the Google Suite and Gmail? Potentially, yes. But again, much depends on the API, what's available, and also the costs involved. From what I've heard from some other people is that the costs were very prohibitive to doing something like that. And so all these issues we'll need to explore as we go forward. But for now, we are very much supportive of memoQ. We support Microsoft Outlook. We have integration with PayPal. That's about 2/3 done. And we integrate with Citrix Write Signature. And we do an integration with the QuickBooks Online. Again, that's currently still being finalized. But there's quite a bit that we have that works very well with the integration. Thank you very much. And apologies for any inconvenience due to the audio capture. Hopefully this answers questions and gives you an idea of where we're going. Bye-bye.